Into the Whirlpool, 3, Chapter 52, Into the Whirlpool, 3, it looks even worse at night. Kale looked down at the largest whirlpool underneath him and commented. He then started to think. Tunka really is a crazy bastard. How did Tunka end up getting the sound of the wind in the novel? He was shipwrecked and arrived on this island, and then starts to show interest in this whirlpool when his condition got a bit better. Volcanoes, glaciers, desert, this bastard who liked to crash against the elements with just his body could not help but be interested in this ocean whirlpool. Tunka enjoyed dangerous situations. No, he was obsessed with them. That was why Kale was calling him a crazy bastard. Tunka said that before jumping into that whirlpool without any preparations. Naturally, Kale had no plans to act the same way. Kale had already packed everything he needed in the scuba gear's pockets. Is it here? Kale nodded to answer the black dragon's question and looked around. Maybe it was because it was a country village, but the entire village was dark at night. The ocean was even darker. But it was much louder than the village from the sound of the whirlpool. The fact that it will get louder will not draw any attention. They will just think it is the whirlpool being weird and forget about it. Kale turned away from the ocean and looked toward the Cliff of Wines. Tunka discovers a hidden cave underneath the Cliff of Wines and enters with curiosity. He finds something at the end of the cave and lets out a laugh. I didn't expect such a good thing to be here. It was a fateful encounter that Tunka had never even expected. Kale put aside the information from the novel and spoke to the black dragon. Let's start. Alright, human. Black mana started to come out of the black dragon's short front paw. Oh. The magic bomb reacted to the mana and started to vibrate. The magic bomb in Kala's arms was not the magic bomb used by the secret organization in volumes 1 and 2 of the novel. It is a much better magic bomb. Around the second half of volume 3, the mages of the Whipper Kingdom who were pushed to the brink start to develop new tools to fight against the non-mages. One of those tools was similar to the magic bomb in Kala's hand. The condensed mana, which is the main ingredient of the magic bomb, reacts to the developer's mana and divides into multiple smaller mana balls before exploding. It wasn't as strong, but the chain of explosions was useful to kill even more enemies. Kale complimented the black dragon. You must be amazing to create such a thing. Yes. I am a great and mighty dragon. Even more black mana flowed out of those short paws and disappeared into the bombs. Oh. Kale could feel the magic bombs vibrating in his arms. Kale was aiming for the moment when the moon set but the sun would not have risen. Be careful, do not get hurt. The black dragon headed higher into the air as he put a shield around Kale and said bye. Click. A small noise sounded from inside the magic bomb. Kale released the bomb from his hand and then put on the scuba mask. It was a magic tool that will allow him to breathe underwater for 5 minutes. A few moments later. Boom. Boom. The bomb went off and Kale summoned the silver shield before falling straight down. The night wind rushed fiercely past his face. Once the tens of smaller explosions went off, the whirlpool lost its strength and could no longer spin properly. Kale opened up the wings of the shield. Splash! The shield clashed with the ocean as Kale dove underwater. He put on some goggles and headed to the bottom of the ocean. Thanks to the shield, Kala's body was quickly sinking like an arrow. Boom, boom. Even more explosions were going off and making the whirlpool lose even more strength. The waves created from the explosions touched Kala's shield and silver wings, but Kale still managed to safely arrive at the bottom of the ocean. Boom. Kale used the shield once more to easily handle the last explosion before starting to walk on the ocean floor. The small central island and the large whirlpool in front of it. That whirlpool was caused by a small top that was underneath a large boulder. This top had continued to spin for hundreds of years without stopping. Kale could see that large boulder in front of him. It was so large that Kale thought it could easily crush a person. Tunka realized that the whirlpool started from underneath this large boulder and grabbed the boulder. It was because it was smaller than the boulder he had lifted up north. However, he was not able to lift this boulder up. Then I'll just break it. That was why Tunka destroyed the boulder. Kale looked toward the boulder and started to think. Tunka, you crazy bastard. You destroyed this thing. Kale shook his head underneath the water and headed toward the top that resembled Sun Wukong underneath the boulder one. At that moment, just like every other time when he had gained an ancient power, the former owner's voice appeared. You sons of bitches, oh. This owner was quite the potty mouth. Why is it a sin to steal something that they sacrificed people to create? Especially when I was just going to return it to the people. You trash bastards. Why do bastards like you have such power? The owner of the Sound of the Wind was that same thief that was said to have stolen something from a god. She had not stolen a god's item. In reality, she had just stolen something from a temple. She had suffocated after becoming trapped underneath this large boulder. The silent thief with the quickest feet met her demise like this. This superpower to control the wind was different than mana. She herself was the wind. After her death, she had become a top to continue vomiting out whirlpools. This stupid water. If my friend's light was here, it will burn it all. Kala's expression turned odd as he was taking out the items to free this top. Light. Is it perhaps? Do you know why lightning is so scary? It is because all it takes is a single streak, just one streak. Kale started to think about the last ancient power on his list, the fire of destruction. He had to pass through fire to get to it and had to have a ton of money with him as well. A sudden thought crossed through Kala's mind. The indestructible shield, wood. Vitality of the heart, wind. Sound of the wind, water. Fire of destruction, fire. Kale was having a bad feeling about this. He even debated whether or not he really should take this power. However. Beep beep beep. The alarm inside the scuba gear was informing him that he only had 3 minutes left. Kale decided to think about this later. Let's hurry and take it out. He started to dig with a hoe. He was trying to get rid of this obstacle that was holding both the large boulder and the top. This hoe that was reinforced with magic was so sharp that the floor easily gave way. There's no reason to be an idiot like Tunka and destroy the boulder. He just had to dig. Kale started to smirk. He could finally see the entire top after digging a bit longer. Kale reached toward the top and grabbed it with his hand. Sweesh. Kale moved a couple steps back with the top spinning in his hand. Boom. The boulder that had been in perfect balance with the top started to lean to one side. If it was a sin that I stole it, why do they claim to not be sinners when they lied to the humans? This world is rotten. It is a rotten world where those in power can do whatever the fuck they want. The world has always been rotten. Kale ignored the thief's rant and put the top down on the ground. There was only one thing the owner of the Sound of the Wind wanted. Freedom. The only way to provide that was to destroy the top. Crack. The top broke into pieces under Kala's foot. Shriek. A sharp noise like a screech echoed under the water as the top broke. The wind that poured out of the broken top started to surround Kale. You have the power of recovery. Don't get caught like I did. Got it, the power of recovery. Is she talking about the vitality of the heart? Kale started to frown as the thief said her final words. Be free. Swoosh. A white wind surrounded Kala's body and moved up to his head before starting to move down. It would do this until it reached his feet and then stop there. But the wind instead roamed around his heart. Boom. 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 Kala's heart suddenly started to beat wildly. Ugh. The heart was beating so much that it hurt. Kale patted his heart with his right hand as air bubbles came out of his mouth that was open because of the pain. What is going on? Ugh. Kale held back another moan and curled up his body. At that moment, the wind flashed before instantly moving down to his feet and drawing an image on his ankle. Kale could see the image of a whirlpool in the gap between the scuba suit and the scuba shoes. This whirlpool was also silver in color. Once the whirlpool image was completed, Kale could finally feel his heart calming down. Did the vitality of the heart strengthen the sound of the wind as well? He was curious but did not have any time to think about it. Beep, beep, the alarm rang once again to let him know that not much time was left. However, he still had plenty of time. Kale activated the sound of the wind and a gust of wind started to swirl around his feet. Kale lightly moved one foot forward. Sweesh. Kala's body instantly cut through the water. Although the large whirlpool in front of the central island was gone, the other whirlpools were still existent. However, Kale easily moved past them without any issue. The other whirlpools will disappear within a week. However, Kale was planning on maintaining those whirlpools for about a year. The whirlpools recognized the sound of the wind, the symbol of their owner, and made way for Kale. His destination was the Cliff of Wines. Kale watched the cliff quickly get closer and kicked off the ground before he got too close. His body shot upward in reaction. Sweesh. The ocean breeze welcomed Kale as he came back above water. Kale quickly took off the scuba mask and threw it aside. Beep, the alarm went off to sound that 5 minutes were up. Kale looked toward the village and saw that quite a lot of lights were starting to turn on. I need to hurry. Hans probably wouldn't come to wake him up because he said to not bother him unless it was a matter of life or death, but it was still better to return quickly. Kale swam toward the Cliff of Wines and noticed large and small boulders underneath the cliff. These boulders were the reason that anybody who fell off the cliff to their death ended up with mauled up corpses. Kale looked to find the boulder that resembled the head of a lion. It was easy to find because it was the largest boulder in the area. Kale then started to smile after seeing the small cave behind the boulder. Found it. Tunka had a fateful encounter in this cave after earning the sound of the wind. It was something useless for Tunka, but it was an ingredient that Kale would put to good use in the future. If this ingredient was combined with the ingredient that Locke will acquire for Kale in the future, the Queen of the Jungle will have no choice but to make a deal with Kale. The Queen needs to save the jungle. Kale carefully swam past the boulders and entered the cave. The cave entrance was dark because the moon had already set, but it did not matter. Kale entered the cave and quickly jumped out of the water. He then looked up at the sky outside. It's about time he arrived. The black dragon immediately started to speak as if he read Kala's mind. However, the black dragon was speaking inside Kala's mind. Weak human, you are not hurt. There was only one reason for the black dragon to talk inside Kala's head. Kale started to get the chills. He slowly turned his head toward the inside of the cave. The black dragon only spoke into Kala's head when there was someone unfamiliar nearby. There is a life form inside this cave. Although it is almost dead, thankfully, it is not a corpse that you fear. PSSSSSSSS. PSSSSSSSS. Kale could hear something dragging inside the cave and started to contemplate his choices. Jump back into the water. Or ask the dragon to take me home right now. PSSSSSSSS. PSSSSSSS. PSSSS. But that dragging noise became more urgent and the life form revealed itself before Kale could make up his mind. Kale put one foot back into the water. The life form that revealed itself started to speak in a shaking voice. Please save me. Ah. A gasp came out of Kala's mouth. The life form had a salty smell to it. It was the smell of the sea. No way. There is something I must accomplish. I cannot die here. Leave die alone. A human-looking existence with its horrendously scratched-up leg dragging approached Kale. There was a green fluid on the scratches that made the existence continue to vomit up blood. That was clearly the work of a mermaid. Please. It was a whale. This beautiful human with messy hair that was crawling toward Kale with his hands was a whale. Weak human, did you catch a cold? Your face is pale. The black dragon was talking into Kale's mind, but Kale could not hear it. Kale felt like he was facing a scene straight out of a horror movie. An injured, almost dead member of the whale tribe had revealed himself to Kale. Chapter 53, Currently Thinking, 1.